Hey guys, have you noticed this? One of the most valuable traits of a investor is the ability to find hidden opportunities. But here's the thing, not every glittering prospect is gold. Sometimes it's a mirage. And believe me, I've learnt this the hard way. You see, from the outside, the property education services products market, it looks really promising. And like maybe you guys, there was a time where I dove in head first. However, the reality was different, and I've been stung. I've spent money, time, and given my trust to people that didn't deserve it. So when I say the property services market is in disarray, I speak from experience. Everywhere I look, I just see complete chaos. Free events that cleverly upsell high-ticket mentorship programs or development deals offering 50% returns, aspiring investors dropping 15K, 20K, sometimes 25K on buyer's agent assurances of done for you, armchair success and just financial freedom. It's really is a wild west out there. And so in this episode, as I do in every episode, I'm trying to bring you free education, okay? Not trying to sell anything. When you watch this or listen to this episode, you'll leave by actually having learned something without having to pay for it. And in this episode, we'll talk about whether you should invest your money. Let's say you've got 60K. Should you invest that 60K or use that 60K to pay down your existing mortgage on your principal place of residence? I know interest rates are really high right now, and there's this tendency, oh look, I want to save 6-7%, interest. Maybe I've got a $500,000 $1 million mortgage, something like that. Let's say a $500,000 mortgage. I want to pay that thing off, because it's costing me a lot of money. So should you start paying that off, or should you rather invest in more real estate, or start investing in real estate to start with? I'm just here in Sydney, as you can see. I wanted to take this video and because it's just such a great background. That's the P&O cruiser just came in this morning. Obviously that's the Opera House. This is where we're staying at it really is. I mean, I used to come to Sydney and travel here every week for almost a year back in 2016, I think, when I was working. And no, I think it was 2015 or something like that. I was coming here again and again and again for work when I used to be a consultant. But it's really great to be back here at the Hyatt, because it really is the best hotel in Sydney. Let's get to the point. Let's say you've got a mortgage, $500,000 mortgage, $1 million mortgage, whatever the case, doesn't matter. And let's say you've got $60,000 of hard-earned money, all right? And you're like, okay, or maybe your wife, your husband or spouse, they're saying, look, we've got this spare cash. Let's pay it down our mortgage. Just use it to pay down our mortgage, because an interest on $60,000 is I think it's just over $3,000 at a kind of 6% interest rate, something like that. So the more we pay down our mortgage, we're saving interest, okay? And that seems like a very plausible and very prudent thing to do. But then you have people like me who introduce the concept of investing, or maybe you're having a scuffle between husband and wife or something. One person wants to invest, one person wants the peace of mind of paying down the mortgage. Let's just go through a very realistic example right here. Okay, so $60,000 in the bank, interest rate 6%. If you pay down $60,000 of your mortgage, you're saving yourself just over $3,000 a year. That's great. That's a good thing, right? But if you use that same $60,000 to invest in a property, and yeah, you can do that with $60,000. You can do that for $55,000. Buy a property between 300 and 400K. Okay, you will be getting lender's mortgage insurance. You will be buying something that's around 300 to 400K. You're putting down a deposit, let's say of 12% with lender's mortgage insurance. Remember, you're not paying lender's mortgage insurance with cash. That's an ability for you to pay down less than 20% deposit, and that LMI, that sort of insurance, gets added to your loan. It's only a few $1,000s or something like that on a $300,000 to $400,000 type property. So you bought this property, right? And you're like, oh great, now I have to explain to my husband, I have to explain to my wife why instead of paying down our mortgage, we've got another mortgage. Let's just see how this works. All right, so you've used that property, and let's say it's not giving you any cash flow. Worst case scenario, it's not giving you any cash flow, and so you're like, why on earth did I buy this property? In fact, maybe it's costing you money. All right, let's be realistic with the current interest rates. You know, I've done other videos on how buying now is the best idea, because in 1 or 2 years time, when interest rates do come down, you'll have made so much capital growth, and in that time rents have gone up, and therefore it's become positive cash flow. Whereas if you wait to buy in a year or two, you're paying more for the same property and the yield is less. All right, anyway, notwithstanding that, let's assume you don't understand that concept and you're like, oh damn, if I buy property now, let's say it costs me another $3,000 to hold that because the expenses are higher than the rental income. So now I've foregone being able to save $3,000, just over $3,000 on reduced mortgage repayments on the interest, okay, because I chose to invest that $60K instead of paying down my mortgage. And this new property, this investment property that I bought, that's costing me $3,000 a year. So now I'm $6,000 in the hole. Like, how could this be a good thing? All right. But this is where people don't fully trust property investing. Like, if you really use data, all right, to pick the right locations. And I've done lots of videos on that. Like, this is a big statement I'm about to make, but let's say Perth proper. I'm not saying like, you know, far north, like, you know, beyond Mareeba or Mareeba, however you say it, or further down south beyond Bunbury. But Perth proper, if you buy something under 500K right now, there is every opportunity, every possibility, almost guaranteed that that thing is going to become 600K in the next year or two. Now, I'm not saying that you should do that. I'm not saying you should blindly do that, because within a city, there's always suburbs within suburbs that outperform, underperform short-term, long-term. But if you do that, buy somewhere under 500K in Perth, and yes, there are still opportunities. Don't let anyone, including your own mind, tell you there's not. If you buy somewhere in places like Townsville, like Mackay, I'm not the biggest fan of Gladstone, but maybe even Gladstone, places like Toowoomba and New South Wales, Tamworth, maybe regional South Australia, you know, like maybe Mount Gambier, parts of Adelaide still. And once again, I'm not saying that you should buy, in fact, I've done other videos to say you should not buy in Adelaide at this point in the cycle, but I'm just trying to demonstrate if you use short-term data, there's long-term data, but ignore that. Even if you just use short-term data, you can reasonably and accurately predict, okay, where is going to grow by at least 10 to 20% in the next 1 or 2 years. Now, I'm not saying we can predict the exact percentage, like 12.652%, but it's pretty easy with looking at data that you can understand where it's going to grow double digits. And if you don't believe me, like, please go watch other videos, and I've demonstrated this again and again and again over the years. All right, some people call it speculation, but speculation in the Oxford Dictionary means that, you know, positioning something or estimating something without any evidence. But if you have evidence, scientific evidence based on years of research and years of study and years of results, you know, then that's not speculation, because it's actually anchored in data. So if you use $60,000 to invest that way, and let's say a $350,000 property, right? And it goes up 10%, that's $35,000. Let's say it goes up 20% over 1 or 2 years, $70,000. That $70,000 completely eclipses that 3,000 plus 3,000, okay, loss, cash flow loss, that $6,000, $7,000 cash flow loss in the first 2 years. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and buy a hugely negatively geared property that costs you $50,000 right, every year to hold, like it would in most parts of Sydney, Melbourne. You need to buy something that your household budget can afford. But if then you marry this with long-term data, all right, then you know that property is not just going to perform in the short term, but is also going to continue performing over the long term. Now, of course, over a 30-year period, if you look at the statistics, the standard deviation between the performance of all 15,000 suburbs across Australia, it really narrows, okay? So after 30 years, there is a difference, but not a huge difference between the 15,000 suburbs and how they perform. It's generally between 6 to 8%, all right, over the last 35-year period. But in the next 10 years, that standard deviation is huge. You can have a property that only compound annual growth rate is 2%. You can have a property that annual compound growth rate is 15%. All right? So that's really the trick. That's what you need to do. You need to find those types of properties. And if you do that, let's say you don't even want to take a chance with some of the fudgier long-term data, you don't believe in it, let's say. Let's say you only want to use more clinical data, which is definitely out there. It's not even a speculation anymore. It's been tested over thousands of properties. If you use that, then after 5 years or after 10 years, that 350K property, I'm not saying a property doubles every 7 years because it doesn't, but some properties do. Okay, a lot of properties do, and that's what you have to find. If you find them and it's completely achievable, it's not a gamble, it's not speculation, all right, you can completely and predictably find these ones that double, then let's say in 10 years time, even conservatively, it's only doubled 350 to 700, right? Well, let's say 5 years, it goes from, let's say a worst case scenario, it goes from 350 to 500. Okay, you sell it, you pay capital gains tax, so you get the 50% CGT discount because you held it for more than 12 months. And then you use the profit, okay, which is more than $100,000, to pay off your original principal place of a residence mortgage. In 5 years, could you have saved $100,000 plus? For most people, the answer is no. And if you multiply this strategy, okay, you say, okay, I've actually got like a spare 120,000. You can buy 2 of these properties, and after 5 years, you've put in another $200,000 of profit, paying off your principal place of residence. Okay, and the sky's the limit, so to speak, and how much you can do this. This is the way people are paying off their mortgages. This is the way they're not being stuck in mortgage prison for 30 years. If you look around Australia, you think everyone else may be struggling or suffering as you are. I'm not saying everyone is, right? Or everyone that's watching is. But everyone has their own financial strategies. And there are people working, I don't know if you can't see the city from here. No, you probably can't. That was a bad move. Anyway, the city's just back there. There's probably, 20,000 people, 30,000, I don't know, 50,000 people in the Sydney CBD right now. There are everyday people making 100K per annum that won't have a mortgage in 30 years' time. And there are everyday people making 100K per annum that will have a mortgage in 30 years' time. The difference is how they're using their mind, how they're using financial literacy, and how they're using real estate in a lot of cases to truncate, to pay off that mortgage faster. Okay, so let that be the principle that you take away. A lot of people have the same situation, same income, a couple of kids, they live out, 30 minutes to 1 hour, 30 minutes away from the city. They're in that rat race, but some people are exiting that rat race faster, not because they're more skilled, more intelligent, more high income earners than you, but because they're using financial literacy to just pivot. They're using financial literacy to make the system work for them. I don't want to go on and on, guys. Hopefully that brought you value, at least some thought that you can discuss with your family, friends. Look, a lot of you will be like, hey, look, I don't want to invest. And that's fine, okay? Some people just want that peace of mind of paying down their mortgage, $3,000 a year, or, just bit by bit, because they're reducing their debt. Look, all good, that's fine if it works for you, but there's other alternatives. If you open up your mindset, if you have an abundant mindset, if you think laterally, that can accelerate your path to being mortgage free faster. And that's exactly what I did. I did a whole different YouTube video on that, on how rent investing is how I did it. I didn't talk about rent investing today, but there's other ways by which you can pay off your mortgage faster, and that's how myself, all this amazing community members are doing it for free, and of course my clients as well, who are doing it in a more predictable, I guess, fashion, with some hand holding by me, using real data, true data analysis and processes and methods and protocols. So anyway, I'll leave it there. I'm doing catching up with some community members from the Facebook group on Wednesday evening. If you watch this in time, join the Facebook group. Some of the details are there. Love to see some of you there. It's completely free. It's not a seminar. It's just a hangout, really, at a pub. Nothing more than that. So thank you for watching. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you being here. Great to be back in Sydney after many months. It's been a great weekend. I love this view. Anyone who wants to stay in Sydney, stay at the Hyatt. It's not a sponsored message. Take care, guys. My name's VK.